Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Mr. Miller, members of the Board of Education, Mrs. Minor, Mr. D'Angelo, members of the class of 46, faculty and staff, parents, family, and friends of the graduates, and especially the members of the graduating class of 1996, greetings. Before I begin my planned speech, I would like to take a moment to thank all of the students and their parents that I have worked with the past 30 years for their support and cooperation. Because of you, my career in SOTUS was the most enjoyable and rewarding experience. My family and I would also like to acknowledge the faculty and staff for the excellent education that was afforded our children and now being delivered to our grandchildren. I'd like to further add that every student I have had the opportunity to instruct has always been well prepared and adjusted to the rigors of high school. The success of our graduates is not by accident, it is by design. In this district, we have an excellent staff and an excellent program. On behalf of this year's graduates and myself, thank you to all of the employees of the district for the years of nurturing, caring, and dedication that have successfully brought these young adults to center stage today. Now that I'm on a roll, I would be remiss not to say something on behalf of Mr. Richard Miller, our school board president. I have known Rich, as he's affectionately known, for many years and hold him in high regard for his dedication and service to the school and community. He has been a member of the Board of Education for 26 years and will be retiring from that position effective the first board meeting in July. Rich has always put kids first and has worked hard at providing the best possible education that our tax dollars can buy. His legacy, though, is the strong community support for our schools that he has fostered over the years. That is and will continue to be an important asset for a successful school district. I know that all of us wish him and his wife Meg the best in their retirement. Thank you, Rich, for a job well done. Class and the graduation committee for inviting me here today and letting me share with them in this third day of celebration. It is an honor and a privilege to have this one last opportunity to teach a lesson at SCS. For the graduates, this will be your last organized learning experience on this campus, complete with homework and a test. That got their attention. 10 years ago, John Nesbitt published his bestseller book, Megatrends. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for 107 weeks. As a matter of fact, it was required reading in my physics classes back then. Some of the trends he saw shaping up at that time were our industrial society becoming more of an information society, forced technology changing to high tech and high touch, national economy shifting to a world economy becoming more global, centralization moving to decentralization, institutional help becoming more self-help, representative democracy changing to more of a participatory democracy. He also wrote about how hierarchies were giving way to networking. We are all familiar with the hierarchies which exist around us in business, government, and society. By hierarchies, Nesbitt was referring to the layers which exist, for instance, in business, with the CEO at the top, followed by managers, then supervisors, and finally line workers. Communication almost always came from the top down, where stratification existed. Probably nowhere is the example of hierarchy more exemplified as in the military. At the top of the pyramid is the commander-in-chief, followed by generals and a whole chain of command, all the way down to private. As you might expect, all communications clearly travel in only one direction. There is very little opportunity for a private to network with the brass. For those of you going into one of the branches of service following graduation, enlighten us when you return as to what progress has been made in regard to networking in the military. I tend to believe it is moving very slowly. It is still intriguing to me how perceptive Nesbitt was regarding the dynamics of change that was taking place at that time, and how his observations have slowly become institutionalized into our present-day society. This trend, as Nesbitt interpreted it, suggested that communications the flow of ideas were no longer going to flow only from the top down. He perceived that the flow of communication would be more horizontal. He envisioned a trend shifting from top-down management, or the pyramid, to a worker-shared governance of the workplace. Since the writing of his book, we have seen the growth of quality circles, shared decision-making teams, and many other attempts at involving all stakeholders in the decision-making process, with the intent to make the best use of all available resources. According to Nesbitt, this change is being driven in part by younger, more educated, and rights-conscious workers filling up the workplace. They were raised to take seriously the ideology of democracy. The whole notion of hierarchies and pyramids was to them foreign. Little did Nesbitt know that the trend was going to permeate through the rest of society, to include families, neighborhoods, and even long-term friendships. The transformation from hierarchies to networking has created much stress and consternation as it has evolved over the past 10 years. People no longer respect authority just for the sake of the title that goes with a position. They do not see the respect for the elderly as some previous norms had demanded. Children do not respect their parents as was accepted in generations past. The ideology of democracy and rights has had far-reaching effects as we have experienced the shift from hierarchies to networking. People feel the need and the responsibility to speak out on all sorts of issues, to share ideas and information. This is, after all, what networking is all about. It is a horizontal exchange of communication, which is a big step from the one-way communication experienced previously. Children question parents and offer their sometimes unsolicited views. Workers challenge the management when they have issues to raise. People in all walks of life are putting aside the barriers of hierarchy and insisting they have the right to express their beliefs and opinions. All of this noteworthy trend setting has not come about without the growing pains that are associated with change. As can be expected, individuals have different levels of involvement and understanding as to what this trend is all about. Some are definitely more skilled or more readily adaptable to the communication process than others. For some, the very fact that this trend gives empowerment to the individual leads to opportunities for abuse. Over the past few years, as we have become more steeped in the trends, it is evident that we have become more of an information society, definitely more high-tech, more of a participatory democracy, and certainly more involved in networking. At the same time, we have seen more of a me society evolve that has acquired an anything-goes attitude or a let-it-all-hang-out mentality. We seem to perceive that as long as it is not clearly identified as a criminal offense, or worse yet, doesn't run a high risk of being caught, then go for it. Our popular culture seems to be running short of self-restraint. Specifically, there's a concern for how we treat and talk to each other as fellow human beings, as family members, as co-workers, and even as friends, since the networking culture took hold and we recklessly exercised our right of free speech. By no means can I target any particular age group. This problem is shared by all age groups. Simply stated, networks are people talking to each other, sharing ideas, information, and resources. If you are negative or adversarial in your conversation, new ideas, information, and resources are not going to come your way. Who is going to speak to you if you are not receptive to what they have to say? Networks exist to foster self-help, to exchange information, to change society, to improve productivity and work life, not to serve self-interest and greed. This past spring, I had the opportunity to do some research for a United Way subcommittee that I'm involved with, and had the chance to review the Wayne County Collaborative Services Study, which was completed in 1995. The document analyzed two different surveys. The first involved administrators and staff of all Wayne County schools. The second was completed by selected Wayne County service agencies. In both surveys, the top concerns identified were poor social skills, low level of trust, and lack of interpersonal relationships. Interestingly enough, the Wayne County Youth Board survey completed at the end of the '94 school year, which sampled 10th grade students in each of Wayne County's 11 schools, listed as one of their top concerns interpersonal relationships. It appears that some of us are not able to network very well, and that this situation is widespread. These surveys suggest that many of us are just not able to get along with others, share ideas, and resolve differences in an amicable way. We seem to lack the skills and or the ability to communicate effectively and are unable to respect each other for our differences. I'm sure that this issue is not unique to just Wayne County. I'd like to read a brief article that was in this morning's paper, Democrat Chronicle. Man kills neighbors, self, over land dispute. Parents, 2 children shot at Lakeside home. This is in Minnesota. An elderly man shot to death 4 members of the family next door and killed himself in a feud over the 5-foot wide strip of land between their lakefront houses. To quote the sheriff, this is the most dramatic and most senseless crime that I've ever seen. It's really a shame that disputes are settled this way. It's such a waste. We do live in a civilized culture, according to all that defines it, but there are evidences that something is missing or in short supply. Tocqueville, a famous French author and statesman, once suggested that when democracy fails, it would not die as Rome did through invasions of the barbarians, but slowly. If the lights that guide us ever go out, they will fade little by little as if by their own accord. This would happen, he predicted, when we lose sight of basic principles. I believe one of those fading principles is civility. Webster defines civility as politeness, courtesy, and consideration. I believe it has a much more far-reaching definition than that. It is an amalgamation of those qualities which govern the approach of one citizen to the rest of the citizenry. The key to civility is trying to make everyone you encounter, day by day, feel at ease. Civility is less a code of conduct than a spirit. That spirit encompasses consideration, tact, good humor, and respect for others' feelings and rights. Civility calls upon us to make an effort to see the other person's point of view and try to resolve differences democratically. It allows us to engage in dialogues with those whose ideas we oppose in a non-aggressive fashion. This leads to attempts to reconcile disagreements by seeking common ground. There has to be a willingness to talk things out with a reasonable politeness. As we accept the changes which take place in our society, changes that provide new empowerment and opportunities for each of us, let's hope that we are not letting other very important ingredients slip away. There are many popular views as to why there is an apparent decline in civility. We know that the movie industry, television, and the stage all glamorize violence and employ explosive situations to energize our emotions. Rudeness, vulgarity, and insults seem to run rampant on the TV screen in situation comedies and talk shows. We know that the family structure is changing. There are more single parents than ever before, and parents are required to work longer hours and more than one job to provide for their families. As a result of these changes, young children are left under surrogate care and frequently with no supervision at all, leaving little time for appropriate upbringing. I'm sure there are numerous other reasons which have been espoused as to why there's a trend toward the decline in civility. Well, here's the good news. There exists a motivation for change, since there are a number of intrinsic rewards that come from practicing civility. First, there is a degree of success that comes from being at peace with oneself. Practicing good manners and treating others in a decent, respectful way builds self-confidence, because people who live this way can be reasonably sure that wherever they go, they will be accepted. A more selfish motive for civility is that it can be a powerful aid to occupational success, whether we are selling goods or services, or simply our own personalities. It pays to have a winning manner. The leader in business or public service today is the one who can make other people want to work for him or her, and that requires that sort of consideration that fosters good feelings on both sides. A recent article in the Democrat Chronicle stated that nice folk do okay naturally. Biologists from Darwin on have proclaimed the survival of the fittest theory. A new school of scientists is now insisting that human beings, as well as their higher mammalian cousins, are not as nearly as selfish, aggressive, and territorial by nature as once believed. On the contrary, people are predisposed to love, empathize, care, and cooperate. If these revisionist biologists are right, then nice people need not finish last. Indeed, they are genetically programmed to finish first. The article goes on to say if they are right, it would explain why cooperative societies survive better than fractious ones, and gregarious people live longer than misanthropists. It's really simple. Creatures in both the animal and human world who assist one another in the struggle for security and survival are more successful at attaining it. Yes, we do have to accept change. We might as well get used to America Online, CompuServe, cyberspace, email, and even networking. As we embrace change, though, it is important to prepare for it and develop the necessary skills needed to make the change meaningful and worthwhile. We must improve our networking skills and embrace the philosophy of treating everyone decently and considerately as we would like to be treated ourselves. No matter what changes you are faced with in the years ahead, practice civility because it is the lubricant that keeps a society running smoothly. Role model it and teach it because civilization thrives on it. Now the homework that I promised you. Following the poem was written by Max Ehrmann. I first read it several years ago and was moved by the straightforward and profound message it conveys. I'd like to share it with you. It is titled Desiderata, a poem for a way of life. Go placidly among the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. There's a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful and strive to be happy. I told you earlier that there would be a test. As our paths cross, days, months, or even years from now, I will be monitoring to what extent you internalize today's lesson. Hopefully you will be able to demonstrate the ability to see the other person's point of view. You will be resolving differences democratically, and having made others feel good along the way, you will be feeling good about yourself. Congratulations and much success in all of your future endeavors, and I'm proud of each and every one of you.